When my brother was 17 years old, my parents put him in the Navy because they thought that would be a better place than where the local police department wanted to put him. So he was in the Navy for a period of 8 years, and in that 8 years, he got tattooed from the bottom of him to the top of him. He looked like the Illustrated Man. He was in the Korean War, and when he got out of the war, he came home. He got a huge paycheck, a mustering out pay, and my brother went out and bought himself a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Now, back in those days, it wasn't the thing to do like it is now. So he got this big motorcycle, and then he got some motorcycle leathers and some chains to hold his wallet in his pocket. He got himself a bandana like Willie Nelson wears and grew his hair and his beard about down to his waist. Even got himself a girlfriend that looked like a Hell's Angel. And my brother and this girlfriend would ride up and down the streets of South Texas, all over the highways on that motorcycle, having the time of their life. Now, my brother had a good job and he made money. He contributed to society, but this was what he did for fun on the weekends, just ride the motorcycle. And one day he was riding that bike down a South Texas road, and a terrible accident happened. Just as he got to the crossroad, as he was coming, he could see a truck sitting on the side road. And this truck was just sitting there with the engine idling. And my brother said he remembered thinking, what are they doing? Why are they just sitting there? But they just kept sitting there. And so he figured they were going to stay there for a while. So he went on down the road, and as he did, these people decided, I guess, that they didn't like the way he looked. And they stepped on the gas and hit him broadside. Now, my brother said when he was hit, he knew that one leg had come off, and he wasn't real sure about the other one. And then he passed out. Now, we don't know how long he laid on that highway, and we don't know who called the police or the Flight for Life helicopter. Here's what I do know. I know that my brother spent 5.5 years in the Veterans Hospital in Houston, Texas. I know that my brother lost his legs, it crushed his spine, it crushed his arm, and most of all, it crushed his spirit. If my brother was negative before he went in that hospital, he was even more negative now. And then one day I came home and I was like little Mary Sunshine again, and he said, I've got an idea. I said, what is that? He said, I'm going to come to work in your office. Well, what are you going to do? He's your brother. And he wanted to make an effort to do something better for himself. So I put him to work in my office. And you know what happens when you put somebody with a real negative attitude in amongst a group of positive people? It's like putting a rotten apple in with a basket full of bright, shiny red apples. Everything around that particular apple starts to rot. And I could see that happening with my business. It wasn't long until I started to notice I was losing my best employees. I was losing my best clients. It wasn't long until I could feel a negative attitude permeating throughout my business. I was very lucky, however. I had this one young man that worked for me by the name of Robert. Now, I only describe Robert to you because Robert was very different than my brother. Robert was about 5'8". He was a bit effeminate. He used to wear pink pants tucked in magenta suede knee boots. He would wear these pink silk shirts and ascots, you know, like the old movie stars would wear. He had a green silk baseball jacket. He had this bleached blonde hair with pink tips, and he wore pink earrings. And you can imagine how much my brother liked him. And Robert used to go in my brother's office every morning, and he'd say, "Good morning, sweetheart. How are you, my darling?" And my brother would say nasty things to him and threaten him and throw him out of the office. And the next day, Robert would go in there again. "Hi, honey, how are you?" And it would go on and on for months. And one day I said to Robert, "Why do you do that? Why do you keep going in there and asking for trouble? You know that you're going to get nothing but negativity from him." And Robert said something that stuck with me the rest of my life. He said, "Why should I change the way I behave because he chooses to be nasty?" Think about that for a minute. How many times have you and I changed our behavior based on the fact that someone else behaved badly? How many times have we avoided someone at work because of their negative attitude. But not Robert. Robert kept going in there every day. He kept asking for trouble. He went in there one day and he said, "Hi, how are you this morning? I see you got your pretty little smile on today." And my brother started to laugh. And that was the day I saw my brother's attitude start to change. You see, Robert kept going back. Kept going back. And my brother said to him that day, he says, "Robert, don't you ever give up." And Robert said, "You never give up on someone who's worth it. And you're worth it." That was the day I saw my brother start to change. That was the day I started to see him be more positive. Mr. Bad Apple had totally changed over a period of the next few years. If you met my brother any time in the last 4 or 5 years, you would have wondered if he had ever been negative a day in his life. And this year, when he was very, very ill, I went that last month of his life and I sat by him each weekend. I went home and sat there in the hospital. And we talked about things. And one day he said to me, "You know, that accident was the best thing that ever happened in my life." And I said, "How could you say that? That accident changed all of our lives forever." And he said, "Yes." He said, "But you know, I had to learn some lessons. I had to learn how to get along with people different than me. I had to learn that I was smart and that I could make a living with something besides my body. But most of all, what I learned was it's not what happens to you in life, but what you do about it that makes the difference." And here's what I want you to do. Go back to your office or go back home and pick out somebody who's like my Wayne, somebody that might be your Wayne, and you be Robert. You say something positive to them. You say something positive even when they behave badly. They might react to you in shock. They might react with anger. Just continue to be the way you are. Do it for a week. Do it for a week and see if it makes a difference in that person's behavior. Let them know that you can believe in them, perhaps even when they don't believe in themselves. Maybe you'll be the one that'll make the difference.